So a couple of days ago, I was going about my usual business, you know, drinking tea, scrolling through social media, laughing at memes, eating breakfast, thinking about Ari's feet, when all of a sudden, I stumbled across this link someone posted in my Discord. Why good players get stuck in low elo. Upon seeing the title to this video, a part of my soul died, passed away, disappeared, never to be seen again. I think the first thing I said in response to the person who posted this video in the Discord describes the emotions I felt in that moment perfectly. If anyone watching this video has unfortunately been in the League of Legends community for more than 25 minutes, you're probably aware of the fact that League players tend to be unbelievably delusional and stupid. Almost every single silver or gold player you'll come across in this game truly believes, from the bottom of their heart, that if it weren't for their noob teammates, they would be a significantly higher rank, which for starters doesn't even make sense when you think about it. If that many of you really were super good players that are being held back, then there wouldn't even be anyone left who's bad enough to do the holding back. So this whole thing kind of just confuses me. But even if it did make sense, it's still just stupid because you can obviously see that almost every single player in Plat is better than every player in Gold. The only exceptions being when a Gold player hasn't played enough games to get the rank they deserve yet. So it's just delusion. But you know what else it is besides delusion? Annoying as fuck. And also really unhealthy. This whole belief of I deserve a better rank that people seem to have is bad for both the game of League of Legends and the people that hold that belief. I could go on all day about why this narrative is bad for the game, but since that's not what this video is about, I'll keep it short. People believing in this narrative promotes the idea that getting a high rank in this game doesn't require you to be good, which would mean having a high rank doesn't mean anything, which would mean that no one wants to put in the effort to obtain a high rank, and if that's the case, no one will ever respect League as a competitive outlet or as a hobby or as an esport, which is obviously just bad. So if we as a community want League to gain more respect as an esport, and if we want to help people get better, we should try to squash this stupid narrative so it doesn't exist anymore. And yet here Skill-Capped are in all of their glory as one of the biggest League coaching platforms in existence, trying to feed into that narrative and make it stronger. So of course, after reading this title, I was a little upset, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt and watch some of the video together first before we judge anything. Because hey, who knows, they might surprise us with a great piece of content here. Let's get into it.
My team sucks. These are the complaints we hear time after time from lower elo players who are struggling to climb in ranked. The usual retort to complaints like that is simply to tell the player that they belong in the elo that they're playing in. If you can't carry when everyone else is bad, then surely you're just as bad as they are, right? Well, we're here to tell you that may not always be true.
I completely agree with this. Not being able to carry every single game as a low rank player does not mean that you should stay stuck in that rank. The only thing you need to do to climb is win more games than you lose over a large sample size, which if you're playing at a higher skill level than the one you're in, this should be easy. I would say that a gold level player stuck in Silver 4 will probably win about 55 to 60% of their games, and with regular LP gains will be able to climb from Silver 4 to their deserved rank in about 200 games.
Sometimes you can actually be a significantly better player for the elo that you're in and still be unable to climb.
And this is just not true. If you deserve a higher rank, you will eventually get it if you play enough games. That's always going to be true. This whole video seems to be built on the premise that this isn't true, which means this video is probably going to be stupid. But let's keep watching.
That is what this guide will cover. We'll be taking a look at critical moments where a good player made a good decision, and yet they get punished simply because playing correctly in low elo can often backfire.
Playing correctly in low elo can often backfire, and because of this, players who play correctly get stuck in lower ranks they don't deserve. This is the premise of their argument, and this is the first conclusion they've come to. As I already said a second ago, I disagree with this conclusion and I'll explain why later, however I definitely do agree with the premise. So from here, they're going to give us an example that demonstrates why their premise is true, and then they'll give us something to take away from the video. So let's watch this example together and see if this takeaway that they give us will be worth adhering to.
The first example we'll cover is from a Jinx who is obscenely fed. It's fair to say that with a lead this massive, that you could put a challenger player in this Jinx's shoes and they'd win this game 99% of the time. However, that will not be the case here, simply because this low elo Jinx is going to fall for one of the deadliest low elo traps that you need to watch out for. As we approach Jinx's demise, let's break down the state of the map. She just pushed this wave and is starting to make her way into the river. This is clearly because her teammates are setting up a collapse on the enemy Akali, and she wants to join up with them. Shortly after, we even see the enemy Rengar in the jungle, who might be a threat to her Nami and Bel'Veth. These are the signs that led this Jinx to make the decision to collapse here. If you ask any high elo player what they think about Jinx's play here, some may tell you it's not the best play possible, but they'd all agree that it's the safe and reliable option. It's not a bad decision by any means.
Yep, I'd agree. Collapsing on Akali seems like an okay play to make here, so I'd look to try it.
But we're in Platinum, aka low elo. Let's watch what happens. Take a look at how Bel'Veth and Nami both got so distracted by Rengar that they forgot what they were doing in the first place. It's only Jinx who notices that Akshan is 1v1ing the enemy Akali, so she tries to help with her ult. Unfortunately, Akshan was expecting more help from his team and ends up dying all on his own. Somehow the Rengar got to this fight first.
Okay, so here the Akshan dies because Jinx, Bel'Veth and Nami didn't move to collapse on the Akali. In a high-elo game they certainly would have, so it was fine for Jinx to look for that play. In this situation, I'd say Jinx made the mistake of not pinging more to get her team's help. But now that Akshan has died, the play is over and she should just return to farming and wait for Akshan to respawn and everything will be fine.
Now take a look at how these three players will position relative to each other. Nami is going the wrong way to who knows where on her own. Likewise, Bel'Veth is so tunnel vision on finding the low health Akali that she's leaving her teammates behind. Their horrible team-based positioning allows their opponents to slowly pincer them and get a great engage off to start the fight. Jinx, despite her best efforts, is eventually caught out and hands over a massive 1000 gold shutdown to the enemy ADC. And of course, this ends up being the catalyst to the multiple throws that Jinx and her team kept making, which eventually resulted in a lost game from the great position that they were in earlier.
Okay, so in the end, she died from this play and lost the game. Skill caps are essentially saying here that what she did was theoretically correct, but because her teammates didn't play optimally, it ended up being a mistake. They're using this as an example to demonstrate their premise from the beginning. Now, here's the thing. This is a shit example. If you actually look at Jinx here, how is what she did ever the correct play? At this point, what the correct play by Jinx is to collapse on the Akali who is currently fighting Akshan with her teammates. But what does she do? She walks here. Akali and Akshan are over here. She's going the wrong way. All she needs to do is run down the river to help Akshan with Nami and Bel'Veth, but she doesn't. She runs into the enemy jungle and ends up cornering herself, which results in her death. If Jinx was playing correctly here, she would have looked to run down the river with her teammates to help Akshan. Her teammates are stupid, so they probably wouldn't have come with her, and once she realizes this, she could just run back to safety and abandon the play. Running into the enemy jungle like this is a mistake no matter how you look at it. No matter what her teammates do here, she's dead. So how can they say this is the correct play? I don't know. They tried to show us why their premise is true, but the example they used doesn't relate to it at all. However, for argument's sake, I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt and assume it does. Let's just say that Jinx actually did make the correct play here and lost the game as a result of it. Because at the end of the day, the premise that making the correct play in low elo can go wrong is still true, they just didn't try hard enough to find a good example of this happening. Instead, they decided to use a random example and twist it in a bunch of random ways to make it still fit their premise. I found that hilarious personally, which is why I pointed it out. Overall, it doesn't affect the point that either me or Skillcapped are making, so we'll just forget about that little detail for now. Jinx made the correct play and lost the game because of it. That's what we're going with. So anyway, Daddy Skillcapped, what does this example mean to us? What exactly can we take away from this?
Looking back, it's easy to see why this play would have probably gone well in a higher elo game. Akshan would not have just been left to die on his own. A good Bel'Veth and Nami wouldn't have been nearly as lost as these two were. Likewise, when Jinx was in this area, Bel'Veth and Nami would know that they need to work together to push their way out of this pincer play by the enemy team. Instead, they're again both completely lost. This should be your big takeaway from this example. In low elo, you never want to commit to plays that rely on any competence from your teammates for you to come out ahead. You want to go for options that are much more versatile and give you room to maneuver in case things go wrong.
So now we have two conclusions from all of this. 1. Don't make plays that will go horribly wrong if your teammates screw up, even if they're technically correct. And 2, because people do this, they get stuck in a rank that they don't deserve. So let's talk about the first conclusion before anything else. I'm just going to say it outright. I strongly disagree with it. This may be surprising to you considering I said earlier that I agree with the premise that good plays can backfire if your team don't follow up correctly, but the thing that factors into this happening is everything but yourself, which means if you play consistently, it will balance out. What I mean by that is, yes, good plays will backfire because your teammates don't follow up correctly, but for every one of those good plays that goes wrong, you'll also have one bad play that ends up going well because the enemy team don't follow up correctly. In fact, you can even see this in the example Skillcapped gave us. The Jinx made a good play, which resulted in her losing the game despite it being a good play, but the Akali that the Jinx tried to collapse on was actually making a bad play, since obviously her fighting the Akshan should have resulted in her death, but it didn't because Jinx's team messed up. So that bad play that the Akali made actually worked out in her favor and led to her winning the whole game. Over a large sample size of games, these good plays and bad plays that go horribly or very well will always balance out for you. The number of good plays you make that end up screwing you over will be roughly equal to the number of bad plays you make that will benefit you. If you want to sit here and tell me that the bad plays that work out never happen for you and you only, and that you only make good plays that end up going horribly wrong because of your bad teammates, then all I can do is tell you that you're delusional. Unless Riot was literally out to get specifically you, there's no way that could ever happen. But now you might ask, if the good and bad plays that I can't control balance out, how do I climb? Well, obviously you climb by doing well in the things you can control. For example, literally every part of your own gameplay. If you play mid lane, for example, and you play at a higher level than the enemy mid laner every single game, even if it's only by a tiny amount, you will eventually climb. It doesn't mean you'll win every game just by playing better, but you will win more than you lose. And over a large sample size of games, rank go up. Skill-Cap's idea of changing the way you play to account for your bad teammates is only necessary if you want to win 100% of your games, which is just not possible for the average person. You might want to argue that accounting for the things outside of your control will still help you win more games, so it is worth thinking about, but I personally think that this will just mess up with your consistency in the long run. If you avoid making the correct play in a certain situation because you're scared that your teammates might not follow up, then how do you decide when to make the correct play and when to not make it? At what point do you decide, actually, I think I'll trust my teammates this game? There's no way of knowing, right? So it's just an extra thing you have to think about that won't matter once you get to the high ranks anyway. And all it will do is teach you bad habits which will fuck you over later in your rank journey when you have to unlearn them to keep moving forward. In short, Skill-Cap's advice here is both unnecessary and risky, so why bother applying it? And as for the other conclusion Skill-Cap came to, I think I've already addressed that well enough. Players will make good plays, but those good plays will go wrong because their teammates are bad. This knocks them down the rank ladder. But those same players will also make bad plays, which will go well because their enemies are bad. This will pull them up the ladder. It balances out, which means it isn't keeping people stuck in a lower rank than they deserve. So that other conclusion they made, and put in the title by the way, is just a bunch of bullshit. The fact that they want to sit there and say that it is keeping people stuck when they know full well that it isn't, honestly disgusts me. It's so obvious that they're just lying straight to the faces of low elo players so they can seem relatable and get more people to click their videos and buy their coaching services. I understand that they're running a business, but I think feeding into one of the most problematic delusional narratives that's damaging the integrity of League as a game is really cringe. It's sad because I really used to like Skill-Capped, and years ago they definitely did make good educational videos. I even liked watching some of them myself, but in recent months the quality of what they put out has really dropped off of a cliff, as I suppose is the fate of every business centered around money. Oh well. If you can take anything away from this, let it be that this video is fucking stupid and not a single one of these coaching platforms is worth your money, because at the end of the day, that's all they want, your money. And since League coaching is such an unexplored realm of business that not many of its customers understand, it's very easy for them to get away with profiting massively without providing any actual value. Oh, and I just wanted to say, if you're watching this video within 2 hours of its release, by the way, I'll probably be live on Twitch right now, so come check me out, maybe drop a follow or something, come say something in chat, I don't know, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, the link for that will be in the description. I'd suggest if you want to learn about the game, you go and look for people that work individually, like Verkayu or Vigar V2 for example. People who put their actual identities on the product they sell have a lot more care for the quality of it. I mean, if they didn't, they would be hiding behind a business like Skill-Capped or ProGuides. Anyway, that's about it for this video. I hope you thought it was worth your time, and if it was, feel free to drop a like. Thanks for watching, lads. In a bit.